Have you ever felt like your brain just has a mind of its own? It's constantly chattering away, even when you're desperately trying to relax or focus? Well, you're definitely not alone. We always hear this advice to just let go of our thoughts. But what is actually happening in our brains when we do that? What does it mean on a biological level? Well, today we're going to dive into the fascinating neuroscience of stillness and find out how meditation can literally rewire our brains for a deeper sense of peace and contentment. So, that brings us to the big question, the one we're going to unpack today. What does letting go really look like inside your brain? We're about to go on a little journey from the brain's constant background chatter all the way to the neurochemistry of bliss to find out. All right, let's get into it. To even begin to find stillness, we first have to understand what we're up against. So let's start by looking at our brain's default mode, that inner narrator that's just always running, replaying the past and stressing about the future. Okay, so meet the main character here, the default mode network, or DMN for short. The best way to think about it is as your brain's autopilot. Anytime your mind wanders off during a meeting, or you find yourself replaying a conversation from yesterday, or you're just kind of daydreaming about the weekend, yep, that's your DMN at work. It is the neurological source of all that mental chat. And within this network, there's a really key player called the posterior cingulate cortex, or PCC. Think of the PCC as your brain's storyteller-in-chief. It's constantly weaving these narratives all about, well, about you. Who we are based on our past, our present, our future. It's basically the hub of all self-referential thought. And those stories, they often fall into these really familiar, sticky patterns. Things like comparison and competition. Now, these 4 Cs were super helpful for our survival way back when, right? They helped us figure out social hierarchies and avoid danger. But today, they can trap us in these endless cycles of anxiety and self-criticism. And these thought loops are fueled by some powerful stuff. Neurochemicals like dopamine and the stress hormone cortisol, which makes them incredibly hard to just stop. So, how in the world do we break free from the DMN's grip? Well, the answer is kind of surprising. It lies in shifting our attention from our thoughts down into our bodies. Instead of trying to outthink our anxiety, we can learn to simply feel it. And by doing that, we totally change our relationship to it. And check this out. fMRI studies show that the simple act of just focusing on your breath has this massive effect on the brain. You can see it right here in this chart. Activity in the PCC, the DMN storyteller, it drops significantly when we just shift our attention to our physical sensations. We are literally turning down the volume on that inner narrator. And this is the fundamental trade-off, really. It's like a seesaw. As the DMN, our thinking brain, gets quieter, a whole different part of our brain, the one responsible for direct experience, it gets louder. We shift from just analyzing our lives to actually living inside them. The key player in this whole shift is a brain region called the insula. This is the part that gives us a felt sense of our own bodies. It's what translates an abstract idea like anxiety into a real physical sensation, like that tightness in your chest or a racing heart. I love this description. The insula has been called a somatic soothsayer, which basically means a body-based fortune teller. It's constantly using our past experiences to predict what's coming next, and that can be super helpful, but it can also lead to a lot of anxiety. By paying attention to the insula's signals in the present moment, we can learn to respond to our feelings with wisdom, not just with fear. But letting go isn't just about thoughts, right? It's also about our cravings, our desires. That inner storyteller is often the one driving what we want. So to find real stillness, we also have to retrain what our brain finds rewarding, shifting from that endless cycle of seeking to a state of genuine contentment. And to really get this, we have to understand 2 very different types of reward. First, there's wanting. This is that dopamine-driven craving for the next thing, the new phone, the promotion, the perfect relationship. It's a chase that never really ends. But then there's liking. And this is totally different. It's the simple, quiet joy of just being present without needing anything at all to change. And this is where a brand new neurochemical comes into the story, anandamide. It's actually named after the Sanskrit word for bliss, and for good reason. It's our brain's very own bliss molecule. Now, unlike that restless seeking of dopamine, anandamide gives us a real feeling of well-being and, this is key, it also helps deactivate the DMN. And the best part is, we can all cultivate more of this bliss molecule in our own lives. I mean, besides meditation, things like aerobic exercise, the runner's high, a healthy diet with dark chocolate and omega-3s, and even just having a good laugh with friends can all help boost our anandamide levels and bring on that sense of well-being. Okay, so now let's explore how meditation can take us even deeper into this state of stillness. Many traditions talk about a series of stages called the jhanas, which are basically states of super deep concentration that you can cultivate through practice. Think of them as a progressive journey of letting go, leading to profound peace. This table really maps out the whole path. You start in the first jhana, and it feels like this intense euphoric pleasure. But to go deeper, you actually have to let go of the very thinking that got you there. Then you let go of the physical excitement, the rapture, and eventually you even let go of the bliss itself, until all that's left is this pure, unshakable calm in the fourth jhana. It's literally a step-by-step process of letting things fall away.
Now, this is where it gets really cool. Scientists can actually see a unique brain signature that shows up during these deep states of absorption. They're called meditation spindles, and they tell us that something truly profound is going on in there.
So we have these things called spindles that happen when we sleep, and they're usually found in the frontal parts of the brain. But meditation spindles, they're totally different. They happen while you're fully awake and conscious, and they show up in the occipital region, the visual processing center at the back of your brain. This suggests they represent a conscious, intentional withdrawal from the outside world. It's a truly unique state of mind.
Okay, we have covered a lot of neuroscience here. So what's the bottom line? How does knowing all of this actually help you when you sit down on the cushion to meditate?
Let's connect all these dots. We can actually use all this science as a practical guide, like a map, for navigating our own minds and really cultivating that skill of letting go. So, what's our takeaway for your own practice? Well, first off, remember that the mental chatter is totally normal. It's just your DMN doing its job. It is not a sign that you're failing at meditation. Second, when you notice your mind has wandered, just gently guide your attention back to your body, to your breath. Third, take a moment to really savor any pleasant feelings that pop up. This is actually helping to rewire your brain for contentment. And finally, just be patient with yourself. Stillness is a skill, and like any skill, it takes time and practice to develop. And it's so important to remember that the goal here isn't to completely silence your mind. As researcher Eric Garland puts it, trying to do that would be a fool's errand. The real goal is to develop what he calls psychological flexibility, the ability to choose how you want to relate to your thoughts, instead of just being bossed around by them all the time. Ultimately, the whole journey of meditation isn't really about emptying our minds, but about filling them with a bit more wisdom. It's about learning to navigate the messy, complex world inside of us with a little more grace, so that we can live more fully and more freely in the world outside of us.